Hi. So, welcome back. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the process of fertilization and the thing involved in fertilization. So, like sperms and eggs, mostly, is what I'm going to talk about today. Because the properties of those two things that we make for sexual reproduction do play a fairly significant role in the way in which traits are inherited. Right? And so, I mean, obviously, the primary role they play is passing on the traits, right? You get the egg, you get the sperm, slap them together, fertilization occurs, right? And then I got myself a full organism again. Right? And that's how DNA is being moved, that's how our traits are being passed on. That's what's creating the randomness of inheritance. Right? And so we're going to look at these little pieces. Right? And so we got sperm, which is what the males make, and we got eggs, which is what the females make. Right? And so the process that happens is the sperm needs to reach the egg, right? And now in organisms such as ourselves, which utilize internal fertilization, right? The egg is fertilized inside of the organism. Right? The sperm needs to swim through the female organism and reach that ovum inside the body, injecting the DNA into that ovum, and then allowing the process to occur where we get the halves and the halves to become the whole. There are some organisms that use external fertilization that still use sperms and eggs, right? That just happens outside the body, and so the sperm meets the egg somewhere else. This is pretty common in the ocean, right? Because like obviously the sperm can just swim through the ocean. Right? Ferns use a type of external fertilization, right? And so ferns don't have seeds like other plants do. They send out their little spermies through water, and they go over and find the girls' fernies and make fern babies. But yeah, either way, no matter what, the sperm needs to reach the egg to make a baby. Okay? The egg has a protective layer of proteins around it. And so, like, we often think of it being the fastest sperm is the one to fertilize the egg. The first one there is the first one to fertilize the egg, but that's not correct. Right? It actually takes thousands and thousands of sperms to reach the egg to get through that protective layer. Right? And so each little sperm on the front of it has a little cap, like a little capsule in its front, and that capsule contains some hydrolytic enzymes that break down the protective layer of the egg. And so once thousands of sperms have hit this egg and slowly degraded that protective layer, right, there's one sperm that gets there at just the right moment, and it hits the egg, right, boop, and then it's fertilized. And then all the other sperm stop trying to get to the egg. Right, that is done. Egg's fertilized, good to go. So it technically only takes one sperm to fertilize the egg, but in order to get to the egg, thousands of sperms have to reach the egg to break through the protective layer. Okay, and the trip to the egg is also a hike. Right, it has to get through a lot of dangerous stuff. The conditions the sperm has to make it through is not sperm friendly. Right, and so it's an adventure for these guys to get there. Okay. So the sperm is a lot smaller than the egg, a lot smaller, roughly 10,000 times smaller than the egg, right? Because the sperm basically is just this little membrane capsule with the little enzyme collection in the front, some DNA, and a long flagella for swimming. That's basically all the sperm is. Okay? Whereas the egg, right, is almost a full-blown cell. It has all the cell stuff that cells have. It has mitochondria, it has ribosomes, right? And it has a bunch of molecules floating around inside of it. And it has a full-blown cytoplasm. And some of these molecules are very important for the development of the embryo, right? And so this thing is obviously starting as a single zygote, which is when the sperm meets the egg, forms a zygote. And that single zygote needs to become all the different types of cells that we have. And a huge part of the development process of one cell differentiating into a bunch of different cells is determined by the molecules that are found within that original egg. Right? And so here in my model, I got different colors representing different types of molecules. And we call these molecules cytoplasmic determinants. Okay? And so these are molecules that play a role in some kind of expression for the organism and that have come from the egg's cytosol. Okay? And now the uneven distribution of these molecules in that original egg cell means that as mitosis occurs, right, not all the cell lines get all the molecules. Right? And so once I've divided it up into a significant amount of cells, some of them have the green molecule and the black molecule, some of them have the red molecule and the green molecule, some of them won't have the green molecule, some of them have no molecules. Right? And depending on what composition of these molecules the cell contains, right, different genes are going to be turned on and turned off. Okay? So a lot of these are functioning as transcription factors. Okay? These molecules are regulating gene expression. And so maybe green is a transcription factor that turns on the developmental cues and proteins needed to become muscle cells. Right? So this cell line would become different types of muscle cells. Right? Make sense? Okay. Now, the meiosis of eggs is pretty interesting. Okay. The whole development of eggs is pretty interesting. Okay. The process of developing eggs is called oogenesis, or oogenesis, right? Oogenesis, oogenesis. Okay. Making eggs. Now, when a female is born, she contains all the eggs she'll ever have for her life. Okay. All of her eggs are made during embryonic development. And so the first phase of meiosis, PMAT1, happens before the female is born. Right? And so all these eggs are hanging out in her fallopian tubes, waiting. They're halfway done with meiosis. Okay? And at the end of PMAT1, right, where we would usually have these two cells, right, one of these cells got the short end of the stick. Okay, it didn't get any of the cytoplasm from this division. So it's this really tiny little shrink-a-dink thing, right? It has the genes that it would have had through the process of meiosis, but it doesn't have any of the good stuff that can make it be a cell. Okay? So it's this tiny little thing, and we call that tiny little thing a polar body. Okay? And it doesn't become an egg. It's just kind of trash now. Bye. Okay? So I have this one good thing that's going to become an egg later on. Okay. And so this is pre-birth again. So this female is born, right? And this thing right here, this halfway done meiosis egg thing, is chilling in her body until she reaches puberty. Okay. Girl reaches puberty and she starts ovulating, right? And the process of ovulation, the hormones that are dumped into the body through the process of ovulation, wakes up one of these half-cooked eggs at a time. Right? So one egg is randomly chosen to wake up. So it wakes up. Right, its follicle matures and it's alive again. Okay, so it comes out of hibernation, it's alive. Okay. If that egg that's been woken up is fertilized by a sperm, it will finish PMAT2. Okay? And that fertilized thing will become a full egg, right? And then it will make another polar body that will just be nothing. Okay, nothing. Then the genes are combined after I get this full-blown egg. Okay? And then I got myself a baby. Okay? So I end up making these polar bodies that are nothing, and I end up making one egg through this process. Okay? That is oogenesis. Spermatogenesis is much more straightforward. It just looks like regular meiosis. It is regular meiosis, right? And then regular meiosis. I start with one cell that's on it's a spermatocyte, right? Spermatocyte, yeah. And it can make sperm. Its job is to make sperm. It's destined to become sperm cells. Does PMAT1, I get 2 with the even division of genes. Does PMAT2, I end up with 4 sperms. Okay? And this happens over and over and over again through the course of a male's life. Okay? And so men can just keep making sperm forever until they stop working properly. Right? And then females have their eggs their whole life. Okay. Within the fertilized zygote, right, And so if you are a female, you're XX. Okay? And so in XX mammals, female mammals, one of those X's is randomly shut off. Okay? And this shutting off happens early in embryo development, but not at the zygote stage, right? And so, maybe we have 8. I'm not going to draw it because it's an awkward drawing. I'm going to draw this. Check out this collection of cells. Okay, this is going to be the baby later on. Okay, and so in this one, maybe X number 1 gets shut off. In this one, X number 2 gets shut off. 1, 1, 2, 2. It's just completely random whichever one gets shut off. Okay, but there on for everyone that this cell line makes, we'll have 2, 2, right? And so this original set is perpetuated through the division of cell lines later on. However, in a female, like one cell will have one of the X's turned off and another cell will have the other X turned off. So if you look at an individual cell, right, it's only going to have one X turned on, but as a collective whole, this female is going to have both of her X's expressed throughout the entirety of her body. Okay. The X that's shut off is called a bar body. Okay? And that X gets shut off and it just really curled up, really, really tight. Okay? So it gets really, really bundled. And so nothing can be expressed from this chromosome because it's so super bundled, promoters can't get in there. Right? And then it just kind of floats over to the edge of the nuclear envelope and just sticks onto the edge and just hangs out there. So this bar body is just a sleepy X, not doing anything. And I think that's it. I think that's everything I want to say about sperms and eggs and fertilization. It's an important part of this storyline. It helps increase the genetic diversity because of the random nature of the fertilization process, right? Like millions of sperm are dumped in every single time, and just one random sperm is going to make it. Right? And then of all the thousands of eggs that the female had to begin with, right, only one of them is getting chosen per round. Right? And so there's a huge amount of randomness about which egg is going to meet which sperm on any given day. And so the genetic diversity is once again increased, which is the whole point of sexual reproduction. Yeah, that's it. Bye.